When he left God's promised land, things did not go very well. Instead, the worst scenario possible he had thought about happened. That after losing his wife, he was sad, angry, and depressed. But there was nothing he could do. He was hopeless. Then God intervened into the situation. God inflicted serious diseases on Pharaoh and his household. Pharaoh figured out why such plagues were on him and his family and brought Sarai back to Abram, rebuked him for telling him a lie in regard to his wife, and gave him an order to leave Egypt. In this way, God arranged everything so that Abram would not stay in Egypt, but Abram had to leave Egypt and go back to the promised land. Staying in Egypt was not God's will. What is the outcome of this whole episode? Look at chapter 13, verses 1 to 4. Let's read these verses together. Chapter 13, verses 1 to 4. Let's go. So Abram went up from Egypt to the Negev with his wife and everything he had, and Lot went with him. Abram had become very wealthy in livestock and in silver and gold. From the Negev, he went from place to place until he came to Bethel, to the place between Bethel and Ai, where his tent had been earlier, and where he had first built an altar. There Abram called on the name of the Lord. Here the expression, there Abram called on the name of the Lord, shows that something amazing happened, that he was praising God and thanking God wholeheartedly. Through this famine training and his journey to Egypt, Abram experienced God's protection and provision personally in the practical matter. In his most difficult time, God helped him. That was indeed an eye-opening moment to him. When Abram was called in Genesis chapter 12, verses 1 to 3, he did not know God personally. Just one day, God appeared to him and then offered him his deal. But through this famine and his journey to Egypt, now his eyes were open toward God. God was with him even in Egypt. And God arranged everything so that Sarai would come back to him and that he would come back to the promised land. That was amazing, really. So Abram came back to Canaan. Previously, he was living in the Negev, the wilderness area, south end of the promised land, very close to Egypt. So when he came back from Egypt, probably most likely he would come back to the Negev, very close area. But he did not stop there. Instead, he traveled all the way, passing the modern-day Jerusalem area, and then going all the way to Bethel, where Bethel and Ai, that area where he had first built an altar to the Lord. This tells us a lot. Why did he travel all the way to the first place where he had built an altar to the Lord? This shows his heart's decision very well. Abram was going to start all over. He failed miserably, but when he understood God's will, he was going to start all over as God's covenant person in the promised land with a harsh new decision that he would never, ever leave the promised land. From that time on, he would never leave the promised land, no matter what. Before this time, even if he came to the promised land, still he was not planted there. That's why when some challenge came, he was simply blown away. Unless he was planted there, maybe later some temptation came, then also he would be blown away. So even though he came to the promised land, he was not planted yet. But now, with his heart's complete determination, he was planted in the promised land. He understood God's will, and he made his heart's complete determination to stay in the promised land where God called him absolutely. He became like a kernel of wheat that fell to the ground. Then the next step was to die, and then he would produce great fruit. He would not move around any longer, no matter what. Then once he was planted there, God would be able to wrestle with him, train him, and polish him, and purify him all the way. No matter what God did to Abram, no matter what happened to him, one thing was clear: Abram would not leave the promised land. So God would be able to challenge him with many things. But Abram, despite all those challenges, would remain in the promised land. In order to do that, he had to maybe deny himself many times. Maybe he had to turn down many tempting offers. That way, he would be really planted. So many Christians do not understand the importance of this first step, being planted in the place God called them to. As a result, they just live as church hoppers, looking for a better church continuously. One day they find one better church. As they stay there, 2 months later, they are tired. They go to the next. They find another good church, but there what? 2 months later, they see all the problems there, so they move. So church hoppers continuously. Or just they live as those who enjoy Christian things, never having a chance to do something really great in their life, never having a chance to live up to their true potential. I know one man who is like that. Even in his 50s, still he is a zealous Christian in his own eyes. He is just a righteous Christian in his own eyes. Has he done anything really good or great in his life? Nothing. He has wasted his life. Be a kernel of wheat that falls to the ground. That's the first step. Only then you know what to do, and only then you have chance to produce great fruit. Only then you have chance to live up to your true potential. Have a heart's determination and stay in the promised land by any means. Then God will help you and bless you greatly. Many amazing things can occur through you.